Roger Taylor stepped forward on June 10, 2026, to officially announce his 7th solo studio album, and this collection of songs represents the end of a major chapter for Queen. This news is something fans have anticipated since his last project, titled Outsider, arrived back in 2021. He named the new record Violence Insane in a Beautiful World, which is a title suggesting a cynical perspective from a man who has spent 50 years in the rock world. The project is set for a full release on September 18, 2026, and it comes during a time of significant transition for Roger and his bandmates.
I'd like to do some things of my own, but that would be completely outside Queen. But me, yeah, I've got quite a few now that I'd like to record, possibly some of them by myself.
While some people see a solo album as a secondary focus for a member of Queen, the circumstances of this release suggest it is more than a creative detour. It stands as a definitive statement from Roger during a year when the future of Queen as a touring group feels increasingly uncertain. The path to this album actually started months before the announcement, when Roger put out a somber and politically charged single called Chumps on February 2, 2026. That song established a heavy atmosphere for the upcoming record, reflecting a worldview that balances modern conflict with the grace of the natural world. He followed that with the lead single Come On Summer, It's Party Time, which offers a sharp contrast to the earlier material. This new track features the Ndlovu Youth Choir, who are already famous among Queen fans for their energetic Zulu cover of Bohemian Rhapsody.
That's funny, because what we were trying to do, we were trying to like combine our sort of sound with almost a gospel sound on it.
Working with the choir allowed Roger to bridge his solo goals with the global history of Queen, creating a sound that feels fresh but rooted in the spirit of his main band. The album contains 9 original tracks and a carefully chosen cover of the John Lennon classic, Jealous Guy. To bring this vision to life, Roger returned to his longtime collaborator and co-producer Joshua J. McCrae to ensure the rhythmic power and production quality remained high. The real reason Roger Taylor chose this moment for a major solo push involves more than just personal art, as he is trying to keep the creative spirit of the Queen family alive during a time of corporate changes and health concerns.
Also the fact that, he was a very private guy, but they got nearly all their facts wrong, and that they missed out the point of what he was actually like in private, which was actually a very shy, gentle, kind person.
Yeah. Which was a very brave and I think well-timed act on his part, because it gave us and those close to us a kind of weapon to talk about it.
As the band moves toward a future defined by catalog sales and archival preservation, Roger's music proves that the fire is still burning for the original members. This record is his first full-length solo project in 5 years, and the timing of the release is not an accident. By June of 2026, the situation for Queen had shifted, leaving Roger as the most active member of the group when it comes to new material and live shows. The title of the album reflects a man who is looking at the world with clear eyes, acknowledging the chaos while still trying to find the melody within it. The lead single with the Ndlovu Youth Choir is important because of the history they share with the Queen catalog.
One of the reasons that I am here tonight, besides my mother and father, is a guy named Roger Taylor from Queen.
When the choir first gained international fame for their Zulu interpretation of the band's most famous hit, it proved that the music Freddie Mercury and Roger Taylor created decades ago still has power. By bringing them into his solo work for 2026, Roger is effectively passing the torch and connecting the classic Queen sound to a new generation of global performers. This collaboration highlights a major theme of the upcoming record, which looks at the contrast between modern violence and the beauty found in various cultures. Roger chose this specific sound to provide a sense of hope against the more cynical lyrics found in tracks like Chumps. Every detail of the production has been handled with the care of a veteran who knows his role in the spotlight is changing.
But mind you, when it is all over and there's not really much coming out of it anymore, you've got to quit then, I think. I'm sure we will when that happens. Or when we feel that happens anyway.
Joshua J. McCrae has been a steady partner in the solo career of Roger for years, and their collaboration on this 7th album shows a level of comfort that encourages experimentation. The inclusion of the John Lennon cover gives us a look at the mindset of Roger during the recording sessions. Jealous Guy is a song about vulnerability and the mistakes of the past, which are themes that matter to a musician, looking back on a legendary career while still trying to say something relevant. As the release date of September 18th approaches, the excitement is growing for the music and for what it reveals about the man who provides the heartbeat for Queen. This album goes beyond a simple list of 10 songs, as it shows Roger Taylor reclaiming his creative story while the Queen brand moves toward corporate management.
I think it's very important to keep a band identity, to keep the same members, and to pursue that as long as it's actively bringing out good songs, good recordings, you know, and good concerts.
Even as the band's business affairs shift into a more professional phase, Roger's solo material remains a deeply personal project. He wants to prove that he is not ready to be treated like a museum piece or a simple legacy act quite yet. Across the 9 original tracks on Violence, Insane, and A Beautiful World, he examines the friction between his status as a rock icon and his role as a concerned citizen. The announcement back in June served as the first real indicator that 2026 would be a year of independence for Roger. He is defining a new path for himself while the main Queen operation stays on its necessary break. When the full record arrives in September, people will see that Roger Taylor is sustaining the spirit of the band through his own uncompromising vision.
Because it's almost inconceivable, really, thinking of Queen performing without him as the lead vocalist.
Well, yes, it's pretty inconceivable, actually.
Choosing to include the Ndlovu Youth Choir on 3 different tracks reveals a genuine desire to reconnect with global musical styles. These influences have always existed in his work, but this collaboration is more than just a guest appearance. It was a conscious effort to blend these vocal textures into the very foundation of this 2026 release. The choir earned international praise for their powerful Zulu language version of a famous Queen hit, which was a performance that moved both the fans and the band. By bringing these singers into his studio, Roger built a bridge that allows his solo music to carry the emotional weight of the Queen name while exploring new areas. This partnership reminds everyone that the spirit of unity that made Queen so special is still a primary motivation for Roger today. The history between this choir and the music of Queen adds a level of depth that is often missing from typical solo collaborations.
That's funny, because what we were trying to do, we were trying to like combine our sort of sound with almost a gospel sound on it.
It relies on a mutual understanding of how songs can move across cultural borders. When the Ndlovu Youth Choir first sang Bohemian Rhapsody, they proved that Freddie Mercury's complex writing could work in a totally different context. Roger recognized that specific power and wanted to use it for Violence, Insane, in A Beautiful World. Their harmonies help ground these new songs in a feeling of shared humanity. This connection highlights a major theme of the record, which is the contrast between a divided world and the beauty found in different cultures. Roger uses the choir as a living symbol of that beauty, setting their voices against the themes of conflict he writes about in his lyrics. By using these global sounds, Roger is speaking on the political polarization he has seen lately. This is a subject that clearly stayed on his mind during the entire writing process. He picked this specific vocal sound to serve as a balance to the aggressive tone of the instruments in the lyrics. While the songs discuss a world that feels increasingly insane, the choir reminds us of the grace that still exists when people choose to listen. This tension is the heart of the album's main argument, suggesting that profound artistic connections can still bring people together despite conflict. Including them on 3 separate songs shows that this was a core part of the album's identity rather than a passing thought.
I think it's very important to keep a band identity, to keep the same members, and to pursue that as long as it's actively bringing out good songs, good recordings, you know, and good concerts.
The symbolic nature of this partnership also helps to fill the gap left by the current hiatus of the main band. It gives listeners a familiar point of reference if they miss the massive, communal feeling of a Queen show. Even though Roger is releasing this under his own name, including a group so tied to the band's history keeps the legacy in the conversation. This is the work of a master musician who knows how to honor the past without being limited by it. He is using his solo platform to look at ideas that might not fit the usual structure of a Queen record. The Ndlovu connection is the thread that guides the listener through the album, providing a sense of continuity during a transformative year. The track suggests that Roger was searching for a sound that could hold on to hope without ignoring the harder parts of reality. These Zulu harmonies offer a rich texture that anchors the modern electronic and rock pieces Roger and Joshua J. McRae put together in the studio. This blend of different cultures shows that Roger's musical curiosity is just as sharp today as it was when he lived in Zanzibar or London.
That's funny, because what we were trying to do, we were trying to like combine our sort of sound with almost a gospel sound on it.
The choir acts as a response to the violence mentioned in the album title, representing the beautiful world Roger believes is still worth defending through music. This shared creative energy proves that while the business side of Queen is shifting, the artistic soul of the band remains intact with Roger behind the drums. Working through these sessions allowed Roger to address the present, while still honoring the sounds that moved him as a young man. Reaching across the globe to include voices from different backgrounds has always been a part of his solo work, but it feels more pressing on this 2026 record. This album captures a world in constant change, and the Ndlovu Youth Choir provides the right vocal backdrop for Roger to explore these heavy themes. Their performance is the heart of the entire project, turning a standard rock record into a statement about how music can bridge massive cultural gaps. Fans will likely hear the same pulse that drove Queen for decades, only now it carries a new rhythm that belongs entirely to Roger Taylor. Using the Zulu language on these tracks brings a level of respect to the work that keeps it from feeling like a simple marketing trick. Roger has always stayed aware of the world around him, and by centering another culture, he is pushing back against the isolation seen in so many places today.
I think it's very important to keep a band identity, to keep the same members, and to pursue that as long as it's actively bringing out good songs, good recordings, you know, and good concerts.
The contrast between his weathered rock vocals and the high, synchronized harmonies of the choir creates a tension that reflects the title of the album. It sounds like a beautiful world trying to be heard over the chaos of an insane one, and Roger captures that struggle clearly in these new arrangements. This specific direction ensures the 2026 project will be seen as a major artistic achievement that looked for common ground during a time of great doubt. This partnership marks a return to the experimental spirit Roger showed in the 80s and 90s, when he was often the first in the band to try new technology. He has always listened for what is happening outside the world of classic rock, and this 2026 album shows his instincts are still very sharp. By inviting the Ndlovu Youth Choir to join him, he is celebrating their talent while acknowledging the deep roots rock music has in African vocal traditions. This feels like a full-circle moment for a man who spent his childhood in Zanzibar before traveling the world as a representative of British music.
One of the reasons that I am here tonight, besides my mother and father, is a guy named Roger Taylor from Queen.
This record is his way of using his platform to help other voices reach a much larger audience. The choir provides the light that balances the darker themes Roger explores during this important year for his career. While the music moved in a bold direction, the business behind the band was going through the largest change in its history. In June of 2026, Sony Music finished buying the Queen music catalog for the massive price of £1 billion, which is about $1.27 billion. This historic deal involved more than just the songs, as it handed over the future management of one of the most successful brands in entertainment. On June 26, 2026, just after the sale was finalized, Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon officially stepped down as directors of Queen Productions Limited.
Also the fact that, I mean, he was a very private guy, but they got nearly all their facts wrong, and that they missed out the point of what he was actually like in private, which was actually a very shy, gentle, kind person.
This move signaled the end of an era where the musicians handled every part of their publishing and recording business for over 50 years. For the first time since they became famous, the daily operations of the Queen Empire belong to a global corporation, rather than the men who created it. Sony now owns the rights to the names and likenesses of the band members, giving the corporation massive control over how future generations see the group. This arrangement might lead to high-tech digital avatars or artificial intelligence projects designed to keep the band image active long after the musicians retire. A key part of the contract specifically excludes money earned from future live performances, which stays with the band members instead of Sony. This distinction means that while a corporation manages the history of the band, the actual stage presence remains under the private control of Roger and Brian. Stepping down from their roles as directors was a calculated move to strip away the administrative weight of a billion-dollar company and simplify their daily lives. Roger Taylor found a sense of freedom that had been buried under decades of constant corporate management and high-level decision-making. With the Sony deal finalized and his seat at the boardroom table gone, Roger redirected his full attention to a solo UK tour and the launch of a new album in 2026.
I'd like to do some things of my own, but that would be completely outside Queen.
He no longer had to oversee the endless paperwork of Queen Productions Limited, which allowed him to dive into his own creative work with fresh energy. The timing of this massive structural shift lined up perfectly with his decision to start such an ambitious solo project that same year. He essentially traded the pressure of corporate leadership for the simple pleasure of being a performing musician again. This transition marks the moment when the legacy of Queen became a global institution rather than a private family business. The financial security provided by this deal ensures that the families of the band members are taken care of for many generations. This stability allowed Roger to take more creative risks with his solo music because he no longer felt the need to prove his commercial value to the industry. The resignation of Brian, Roger, and John as directors of Queen Productions Limited closed a chapter of rock history that first opened in the early 70s.
One of the reasons that I am here tonight, besides my mother and father, is a guy named Roger Taylor from Queen.
While many casual fans might have missed the significance of these resignations, it was a clear sign that the members were choosing art over assets. The solo album Roger released in 2026 is the result of this newfound independence, created by a man who is now a songwriter first and a director second. Sony now manages the archival treasures of the band and has the resources to preserve these recordings for the next 100 years. This change allowed Roger to stop worrying about back catalog logistics and focus entirely on the excitement of live performance. His late 2026 tour across the United Kingdom celebrated this independence by visiting smaller venues where he could connect directly with his audience. Because the contract protected his live revenue, Roger was performing for his fans and himself rather than a corporate balance sheet. By June of 2026, Roger Taylor had moved from being the guardian of a massive legacy to being a free agent again. He was ready to start a new chapter of his career exactly how he wanted. Before we continue into the story of John Deacon joining his bandmates for one final act of solidarity, do you think Roger Taylor's move back to intimate venues is the best way for a legend to reconnect with his fans? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
But me? Yeah, I've got quite a few now that I'd like to record, possibly some of them by myself.
If you are enjoying this story so far, hitting like and subscribing really helps us keep making documentaries like this. Now, let's carry on. John Deacon joining his bandmates in this resignation is perhaps the most moving part of the entire corporate shift. It served as his final official act of solidarity with the group. Even though he stayed out of the public eye for decades, his seat on the board of directors reminded everyone of the bond shared by the original quartet. By stepping down together, the three surviving members proved they were still making the big decisions as a unit right up until they handed the keys to Sony. This collective move gave Roger the emotional closure he needed to start his next solo chapter with a clean slate. The billion-dollar headline about the deal captured the world's attention, but the real story was the freedom it bought for a drummer who still carries the heart of a teenager. Roger Taylor used this moment to reclaim his time and his music, ensuring his 2026 album would reflect his own spirit without the weight of the Queen corporate machine.
I'd like to do some things of my own, but that would be completely outside Queen.
Serious doubt surrounded the future of Queen as a live entity after Brian May suffered a minor stroke in late 2024. This health scare naturally changed everything for the band and their long-term plans. While Brian made a remarkable recovery and eventually returned to his guitar, the incident served as a quiet reminder of the physical toll that stadium touring takes on a musician in his late 70s. Roger Taylor admitted in July of 2026 that any prospect of future Queen live dates now depends entirely on Brian's physical health and his ongoing stamina. This reality is the reason the 2026 calendar for Queen and Adam Lambert remained completely empty, even as demand for their high-energy shows continued to grow across the globe. For decades, the band operated as a touring machine, but recent events forced a necessary pause to prioritize the well-being of the man who provides their signature melodic voice. In early 2026, Brian May made another significant announcement that further narrowed the possibilities for the band's return to the stage. He stated that Queen would not be performing in the United States for the foreseeable future because of the intense political polarization in the country.
Which was a very brave and I think well-timed act on his part, because it gave us and those close to us a kind of weapon to talk about.
Brian has always advocated for unity and social harmony, and he expressed a reluctance to bring the band into a climate that felt increasingly divided and hostile. This decision was a major blow to the American fan base, but it also clarified why Roger Taylor's solo tour was confined to a much smaller and more specific geographical area. With the main band on an indefinite hiatus and the North American market off the table, Queen fans were left waiting and hoping for any sign of activity. Roger Taylor's 6-date UK solo tour in September of 2026 stepped into this gap, becoming a vital lifeline for those who were desperate to see a member of the original lineup in person. These performances represented the only live appearances for any member of Queen during the entire year, effectively filling the massive void left by the suspension of their grand stadium tours.
Because it's almost inconceivable, really, thinking of Queen performing without him as the lead vocalist.
Well, yes, it's
is
pretty inconceivable, actually.
Roger understood that the flame of the band needed to be tended, and he used his solo platform to ensure that the music remained a living experience. By stepping out on his own, he was able to maintain his own performance levels while allowing Brian the time and space needed to focus on his health and other interests. The result was a tour that felt deeply personal and urgent, serving as a bridge between the era of global spectacles and a new, more intimate phase of their careers. To maintain the high standards fans expect from any project associated with the Queen name, Roger assembled a solo band that included familiar faces from the touring family. Most notably, he brought along the longtime keyboardist Spike Edney, who is often called the fifth member of Queen for his decades of service behind the scenes. He also included the talented drummer Tyler Warren, who spent years as a percussionist and backing vocalist for the Queen and Adam Lambert tours. By bringing these specific musicians on the road, Roger was able to keep the signature Queen sound alive in much smaller venues. Even without Brian May's Red Special guitar or Adam Lambert's theatrical vocals, the presence of Spike and Tyler ensured that the rhythmic and melodic DNA of the band was present in every note. The solo tour did more than just promote a new album, as it served as a deliberate strategy to keep the Queen machine moving while the main band took time off for rest.
But me? Yeah, I've got quite a few now that I'd like to record, and possibly some of them by myself.
Fans were able to stay connected to the legacy during a year that would have otherwise felt like a complete shutdown of all group activities. Moving from massive stadiums to the intimacy of a 6-date club tour highlights how much Roger respects the audience that has followed his career for over 50 years. During those September nights, he carried the weight of the Queen name on his shoulders and proved the story is far from over as long as an original member is behind the drums. Because the main band was on hiatus, these solo shows felt like a rare gift and a chance to celebrate the past while looking toward the future of the surviving members. Even though the solo tour took up most of his time in 2026, Roger confirmed that the creative spark between him and Brian May is still very much alive. He has been very open about the fact that he and Brian never really stop writing, even during periods when the public assumes they are taking a long break. He shared that the two of them are constantly writing and even revealed they spent time in Nashville recording new sessions with Adam Lambert. Roger described those specific sessions as being pretty damn good, and that phrase alone caused people to start speculating about a possible new studio album from the trio. This news suggests that Queen might continue as a studio group for years to come, especially if the physical demands of stadium touring eventually become too difficult to manage.
But mind you, when it is all over and there's not really much coming out of it anymore, you've got to quit then, I think. I'm sure we will when that happens. Or when we feel that happens anyway.
Recording in Nashville allowed the group to explore a fresh musical atmosphere, marking the first time all three have committed to working on new material together in such a major way. These Nashville sessions are interesting because they are a clear departure from their usual hubs in London or Switzerland, showing they wanted a new perspective on their sound. They are balancing this focus on new music with a commitment to their history, as the members remain involved in legacy projects despite the massive catalog sale to Sony. One of the most anticipated releases for 2026 is a special collector edition of the Queen 2 album, which sees Brian and Roger revisiting their early progressive rock roots using modern technology. Choosing Queen 2 for this 2026 release matters because many people consider it to be the album where the band finally found their unique voice. Along with these physical releases, a 4K IMAX restoration of the 1986 Budapest performance is set for a major theatrical release in October of 2026. This project allows fans to experience the power of the Magic Tour with levels of visual and audio clarity that simply did not exist 4 decades ago. By overseeing the restoration of the Budapest concert for IMAX, they are giving younger fans a way to see Freddie Mercury at his peak in a modern format. The year 2026 marked a major shift in strategy for the Queen organization as they moved away from high-stakes stadium tours toward a focus on archival preservation.
Also the fact that, he was a very private guy, but they got nearly all their facts wrong, and that they missed out the point of what he was actually like in private, which was actually a very shy, gentle, kind person.
This change allows Roger and Brian to honor their shared history while still having the time to pursue the projects that matter most to them as individuals. By focusing on film restorations and deluxe box sets, they are making sure that the best versions of their work are preserved for future generations. This period of quiet productivity came as a result of the freedom provided by the Sony deal, which allowed them to become curators of their own legend. Maintaining a balance between looking back and moving forward is exactly what has kept the band relevant for more than half a century. The shift in 2026 is not an attempt to slow down, but rather a move toward working smarter and focusing on quality over the quantity of live shows. By turning their attention to these manageable projects, Brian and Roger are making sure the legacy of the band is handled with respect while still growing artistically. The end result is a deeper presentation of the Queen story that values their studio work just as much as the energy of their live performances.
Because it's almost inconceivable, really, thinking of Queen performing without him as the lead vocalist.
Well, yes, it's pretty inconceivable, actually.
Roger Taylor has been very clear about why he decided to move forward with his project, Violence Insane in a Beautiful World. He understands that a legacy as massive as the one Queen built requires a living and breathing connection to the fans. While the main band takes some time for necessary maintenance, Roger's making sure the engine keeps humming through his solo work. He has stepped into the role of the primary custodian for the live energy of the group. By using his September tour dates, he satisfies a global audience that refuses to let this music fade away. This effort to preserve the live experience is a vital service to the supporters, ensuring the spirit of the band remains in the physical vibration of a drum kit rather than just old recordings. The recent deal with Sony might have secured the financial legacy of the group for a century, but the tireless work Roger Taylor is doing in 2026 keeps the artistic heartbeat of Queen active. Corporate management and large sums of money can preserve the image of a famous band, but only the musicians themselves have the power to protect its soul. By continuing to write and perform, Roger is proving that the transition taking place in 2026 is an evolution instead of a retirement.
But mind you, when it is all over and there's not really much coming out of it anymore, you've got to quit then, I think. I'm sure we will when that happens. Or when we feel that happens anyway.
The band is officially moving away from its origins as a touring rock group to become a managed institution. It still needs the human touch of its founders to remain authentic. This change means the Queen brand is now much bigger than any single performance. But the solo output from Roger provides the essential human element that keeps the brand from feeling sterile. He has become the bridge between the boardroom at Sony and the sweat of the live stage. It is a role he has embraced with renewed energy during this new era. Every beat of his drum and every line of his lyrics throughout 2026 serves as a reminder that the people behind these legends are still here and still creating. As the year comes to a close, it is clear that the story of Queen is still being written one solo track and one intimate stage at a time. Roger Taylor remains the constant rhythmic pulse that has never wavered since those earliest days performing in London. As long as he is behind a drum kit and finding new ways to express the beauty of the world, the flame that was lit over 50 years ago will continue to burn. The transition we are seeing in 2026 is really just the beginning of a new way to experience that fire. It is led by a man who knows the music is too powerful to ever truly stop.